The right answer. Alypia held a neutral tone in the way only Urizeni questors can make absolutely infuriating. You do realize that Empress Rishild herself has no signs. That's probably Nikovar's fault. So much was lost in the fires. Igraine easily turned the comment around. It came naturally to a troubadour like her. Alypia maintained her polite, cool etherealness, as if she were made of the heady air of her home. Nikovar burned the libraries in 209. Rishild was recognized in 219. Oh, well, surely she has signs then? No. She's Empress Rishild. She's the very embodiment of pride. Okay, how? She was the one who crystallized the ability of everyone to feel a sense of belonging to the Empire. She was a groundbreaking figure in the history of the Way. So what are her signs? Ask a pride priest, Igraine snapped, her patience finally exhausted. Overview. The Way Assembly have found the highest calling of those priests who commit themselves to discussing and promoting the faith as a whole rather than any single virtue. Bryn Tendfallen's statement of principle regarding the importance of the Assembly's custodianship of the canon managed to convince their fellow theologians and has sought to focus on that sacred duty. Formally, the Assembly of the Way is expected to be responsible for the integrity of the Way itself. Many in the Assembly see themselves as responsible for the faith itself, dedicating themselves to creating a more perfect understanding of the Way, even as they strive to maintain the fidelity of the doctrines of the faith. Bryn's statement chimes with these sentiments, as it urges the faithful to strengthen the faith by questioning and challenging what is known. Such questioning is never without risk. Revelation can shake the foundations of the Way, as it did with the shocking discovery about the true nature of Vardus. To test a thing, you must put it under stress. However, by making the need to test the faith their highest calling, the Assembly of the Way has an opportunity to examine the faith in a controlled way that ensures that nothing disastrous can happen. There are costs. You cannot question the faith without shaking people's confidence in it, but the stewardship of the Way will ensure that those costs cannot spiral out of control. Revelation in this way may test the faithful, but it won't permanently damage their dedication to the Way. And with the support of the other virtue assemblies, it may leave the faith stronger than ever at the end. The Imperial Way is a beacon to the entire world, showing the path to enlightenment. The light of that beacon must be tended and renewed to keep it burning bright. Virtue calls us to test what we know, building a way that is strengthened by questions, challenges and revelations rather than being threatened by them, is the highest calling of this assembly. Bryn Tendfallen, Way Assembly, Spring 388 YE, upheld with a greater majority, 268 to 30. Question, challenge and reveal. The most common way for priests, both lay and of the Synod, to explain and reinforce the 7 paths of virtue is by stories of the paragons. Tenets and auras are virtue in the abstract, but the practical ways in which those recognized live their lives is always easier to understand and apply one's own experiences to. When one asks how they might despise the thieving bandit, the lazy wastrel, the grasping miser, and those who take without giving, one need only look to the example set by good Walder. When a pilgrim of wisdom asks how they might go about finding the right question, tales of the lives of Zoria or Kala give useful examples that can be applied to our own thinking. Beyond this, those exemplars who are recognized while still living serve as a focal point of inspiration and increased devotion. They are people you can actually meet, who you can ask about their experiences and seek guidance from. They become real manifestations of the faith people hold in their hearts that have a much more immediate connection than a storyteller regurgitating the sayings of a figure separated from you by history, culture, and circumstance. It is no wonder then, when revelations about those who the Synod have raised up as beacons of virtue come out, as recently happened with Vardas, and damage their reputation, that there is such turmoil across the 10 nations. A fundamental part of the self-identity of the followers of that virtue and trust in the Synod itself is fundamentally shaken. But the courageous face unwelcome truths. It is one thing to discover out of the blue that a beloved paragon never existed. It is another thing entirely to openly debate the nature of the paragons and exemplars in the knowledge that all knowledge is incomplete. It is welcome then that the Way Assembly is looking to test what they have learned and ensure that the faith may be protected against such events in the future. For the next year, the Way Assembly can pass any number of statements of principle, each naming a single exemplar or paragon and stating any question or concern they have with their elevated status in the faith. Perhaps they are missing key signs, or it is unclear as to how precisely they embody the virtue they were recognized for. Whatever the issues are, as long as the concerns are clear and the statement achieves a greater majority, then it will cause adherents of the inspirational figure's virtue to ruminate upon them. Only fools accept hearsay. As was seen with the recent revelations and following the derecognition of Vardas, such change coming from outside the Synod and forcing the body to act reactively trouble the general population and could cause a severe crisis of faith. By taking this proactive path, the Way can ensure that does not happen here. The lay people of the Empire will see the Synod as rightfully discussing and debating the faith, and that will ensure that the consequences are guaranteed not to spiral out of control, unless further complicated by subsequent opportunities. There will still be consequences, however, especially if there is no evidence that the questions being raised are not being engaged with or answered. If the relevant Virtue Assembly does not respond to the concerns with a statement of principle of their own at the subsequent summit, then it will shake the faith of the virtuous. If there is no response of any kind, then the Virtue Assembly will experience a loss in voting strength and influence in the wider Synod until they do respond. Out of character note, they will experience a 2-vote penalty to all congregations that preach that virtue in the downtime following the subsequent event, until the Assembly passes a statement of principle in response. These concerns will linger until the Virtue Assembly finds a way to provide a clear, convincing response. If the Assembly confidently passes a statement of principle that clearly addresses the concerns in the minds of the populace, then that will restore the trust of the faithful and remove any penalty. If the Assembly fail to agree a response with a greater majority, then the alternative would be for the General Assembly to de-recognise the chosen exemplar or paragon. The General Assembly could do that with a lesser majority for an exemplar or a greater majority for a paragon. While that would be a drastic step, it would also settle the matter and remove the penalty. This system of internal review will renew trust and adherence to the teachings of the forebears of virtue who have been questioned and come out stronger than ever. The canon of the Synod will ultimately be strengthened by cutting any who do not truly deserve to be lifted up as an embodiment of the Seven. Crucially, this approach will ensure the Synod does not find itself facing an unexpected crisis of faith. It is possible that if the Assembly of the Way raises probing questions or the response of a Virtue Assembly provides a compelling response, that it may generate renewed interest in the particular figure, to the point it may generate a new opportunity to take further action. But the situation won't grow more challenging unless the Synod actively pursues those opportunities. Out of character design note. When it comes to answering any questions posed by the Way Assembly, it is not necessary to provide hard physical evidence of the truth of any given facet of these figures. That is not how faith works in Empire. What the Virtue Assembly will need to provide are compelling arguments, reasons, and explanations that cover the issues raised. It might mean expanding on or identifying relevant signs, or explaining how the story of a given figure is inspirational and relevant to the lay people of the Way. This is an opportunity for people to roleplay around those themes, rather than asking Leviathan or historians for definitive fact regarding every historically recognised person. You can still ask Leviathan questions or carry out historical research about these figures, of course, but that shouldn't be the only way to respond. The only thing that definitely won't work is trying to claim that the questions themselves are not valid.